And now on to the program of the day, which is a candidate forum for those persons. We have three of the people who are listed on the ballot present with us today. And we have a wonderful moderator in Gary Fries, a retired history professor from Catawba. We are videoing this presentation as well. So as soon as Joyce gets it edited and online, you will be able to tell others that this candidate forum will be online. This is the first candidate forum being done by the various counties here in District 6. So without saying anything more, I think I've got Gary behind me here. Okay, take it away, Gary.
We'll be sharing the mic. Can you hear me? No? Closer to the mic. There we go. Bo, I'm not really sure this cord's going to reach to you. Do you think it's going to reach?
Yes.
Okay. We have three candidates here today to talk about the issues in the forum. The first one is Bo Blair from Salisbury. The second is Cyril Jefferson from High Point. And the third is Alyssa Cassay from Kernersville. They'll each have a minute to introduce themselves, and then we will go into 8 prescribed questions that we came up with this week. And we will start with Bo for the first one. So, Bo, if you'll introduce yourself first, we'll go from I'll bring you the mic. Otherwise, we'll trip over each other the whole time.
Good? Sorry, Cyril. All right. How's everybody doing today? Yeah. I'll be quick, but give yourself a round of applause because we've only seen this room full once. So thank you very much. I'm Bo Blair. I'm from right here in Salisbury. I grew up here. I'm raising my family here because I believe in this district and I believe in the people that are here in this room. And that's why I'm running for Congress. It's time that we have somebody who doesn't back down from what's happening, to stand up, because I am not a career politician. This is my first time running for office, and I'm proud to say that because it means that I'm willing to fight for you because I am you. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Yes, there's a very large crowd here. Appreciate it. And just to bounce off what Scott said, don't donate to him. Donate to me instead. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alyssa Cassay, and very quickly, I am one of those federal employee supervisors who got doged out of my job because during the current administration, I was told to perform unthinkable acts. One of them was to fire my probationary employees. And of course, I didn't want to do that because I spent a lot of time trying to find them. But that, along with the current climate of the administration and the federal government, I decided to step down and step up to save the world. So I am here today because I am also not a politician, but I am very familiar with federal rules and regulations. And I am, as Bo said, just like him and you, that 2%. So thank you, Cassay all the way.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's so great to be here with you. My name is Cyril Jefferson. I'm a very proud mayor of High Point, North Carolina. For those of you who haven't heard, I'm the son and grandson of veterans, ministers, and civil servant members. You could say that for a person like me, our dinner table included family and service side by side. It ran in our blood. It's the kind of work I did as an educator. It's the kind of work I did as a small business owner. It's the kind of lessons that my wife and I teach to our 2 sons. This kind of work I carry with me every day as the mayor of High Point. I got into this race because when I first met Addison McDowell, he told me he wouldn't be an extremist and that he would work for all people. And yet this first year has proved otherwise. And so I got in this race to give people a real fighting chance because in November, you've got to have someone who can win in the kind of district that's gerrymandered. You've got to have someone who's got bipartisan support. And polling data shows us that we already are pulling 12% of Republicans on our ballot. So what that tells us is that come November 3rd, 2026, we will win with your support. Vote Cyril Jefferson.
You will note we have a 2-minute limit for each answer, so you may hear Joyce go time. And we will start with the first question, which is, in light of recent events with Venezuela, what is your position on U.S. intervention in the internal affairs of other nations? And we will start with Bo.
All right, this is going to be interesting every time. So I feel like I'm cutting Cyril off. Sorry. But anyway, so what's happened in Venezuela, we all know what this is about. This is about regime change so that corporations can get to oil and make more profit. It has nothing about drugs, nothing to do with that. The United States used to be a force for good in the world. That is what we always stood for. After World War II, we were the ones who rebuilt. That better? Sorry. Do you want me to start over? But anyway, after World War II, we were the ones who went out and helped to rebuild Europe after the war was over. That is how we became the driving force. We've always been there when countries needed us. We don't need to be invading countries to overthrow and destabilize regions. That being said, it is time for us to get back to where we used to be, which is helping every single person of this world to make sure that their lives are better, not through intervention and destabilization.
So my position is that Trump won't do anything unless it benefits Trump. And clearly, what happened in Venezuela was for Trump and only for Trump. And what he sees, he takes, whether or not anybody, as in the Venezuelan government, want it or not. And at the end of the day, it is about the oil, because he can get all those people and the banks and the oil companies on his side, and he gets a piece of everything that he takes. He has no regard for those people over there. He has no regard for the people over here. And that's where the problem comes in. This guy needs to be stopped, because if he doesn't, as we know, we heard this morning, he's now saying to Greenland, I'm taking you whether you want to be taken or not. So this man needs to stop. I need to get to Washington so I can tell him we've had enough. We've all had enough, and it needs to stop in this cycle today. Thank you.
You know, it's interesting. You talk to Venezuelans, and they'll tell you that Nicolas Maduro was a dictator and that they couldn't wait for him to get out of office. That being said, we have to hold that truth and this other truth, which is that we don't trust the motives of the Trump administration. And when you intervene in countries and you come and you choose to take their resources, and no one trusts that those resources will go back to those people, that's where we all have concern. As it pertains to American intervention, what America used to stand for around the world were these principles of democracy, these principles in terms of rule of law. And in his recent New York Times article, Donald Trump said that international law doesn't govern my decisions. The only thing that limits me is my morality. Dear friends, if the only saving grace for us is Donald Trump's morality, then we're in trouble. Right now, we've got to have a legislative branch that is a real check on the executive branch. And what we've seen for the past 12 months is a Congress that abdicates its responsibility. At every single turn, when they have the chance to govern, when they have the chance to stand for American ideas, when they have the chance to be the example of what American voters voted for, they do not choose to do that. At every single turn, they cower. And what we need in Congress is people who will not cower. What we need in Congress is people who understand what the framers of the Constitution wanted back in 1776, that we should be that shining example of what true democracy and liberty looks like. And we cannot pick and choose when those values matter. We have to be consistent about that. And that's the concern that people, not only here in America, but around the world have when it comes to the decisions being made.
We'll go now to number 2. The Social Security trustees have forecast that the program's trust fund will become insolvent by 2033, which would create a forced reduction of benefits. Do you pledge to propose or support legislation which would address the program's finances without cutting benefits? And if so, what are they?
Start with me.
No, we start with Alyssa this time.
Okay.
So, you know what? Social Security, for some reason, that pot of money is enticing to everybody up in Washington, all those Congress people. They, for some reason, feel the need to put their name on it and want to take from it. And it's not theirs, it's ours. And we need to maintain that. I have been hearing almost my entire adult life how that fund is going to become insolvent. And as of right now, I don't see it being insolvent. I see us as potential Congress people protecting that, because that's what needs to happen. We need to protect our money from other bureaucrats trying to take it and use it as a slush fund. Thank you.
Right now, when you talk about Social Security, the truth is that the math ain't mathing. That when you've got a cap set at roughly $130,000 for everyone's income to go towards Social Security, that cap is not high enough. Right now, we've got laws that provide loopholes for billionaires to pay less in income tax than your everyday teacher. That is not the kind of tax policy that thrives for the working and middle class. If we're going to do the work, then we have to be serious. When Social Security was created, it was created because we wanted to ensure America was fertile ground for every person, and that we would say to you that if you would work, that you'd pay into Social Security, and then one day you could enjoy the fruits of your labor. So many of our Americans right now are enjoying that, but the threat of it going away, just imagine that prospect. We need to ensure that for future Americans, that for our children and our children's children, that we can have the kind of funding that supports that, but it doesn't happen if we don't increase that cap on Social Security that comes from income tax.
So we are January 10th, right? Every millionaire in the country has already paid their taxes into Social Security for the year. They did that on January 1st. Let that sink in. $180,000, that's all they had to pay. Out of every one of your paychecks, there's money coming out every single time you get one. That's the Social Security money. As Alyssa alluded to, that is our money. We need to protect that money, but we need to raise the tax cap on millionaires so they have to pay their fair share. We also need to, yes, please clap as much as possible. It makes me feel good, I will tell you. But we also need to make sure that we are the ones who are benefiting from Social Security and not the millionaires and billionaires who are paying nothing into it. We also need to make sure that our money is used correctly, because the people who are still retired are still millionaires that are still getting paid Social Security every week. That money should come to us. We need to make sure that we raise the cap on the taxes, but also make sure that more money is coming to us. And that's the legislation I will make sure I pass when we get there.
Number 3, how would you describe the SNAP program and whether it needs reform? We'll start with Cyril.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was in this very room a few months ago where someone asked me the question, how do you get more people to support SNAP benefits when they think it doesn't matter to them? And the interesting thing is that SNAP doesn't just feed the hungry bellies of children and families across this country, but SNAP subsidizes farmers all across this country. How we support SNAP is how we ensure that kids don't go to school hungry. As a former educator, I can tell you that we show up in the classroom and we had to keep Pop-Tarts, we had to keep Cheez-Its, we had to keep Goldfish, we had to keep all types of stuff for our kids because no one learns on a hungry belly. The moral imperative is pretty clear on this in terms of what we do to support that. And as long as America is the kind of expensive country that it is, then we have to ensure that our people eat. Because if you can't eat, you really can't focus on much else. And if we're going to have a thriving economy, if we're going to have students that learn and prepare for the future that comes, then we got to make sure that we're feeding them in the best way possible.
So I'm going to take it in a different direction, okay? Walmart is the largest employer of people on SNAP and food assistance in the country. They get a massive tax break every year that somebody is still on SNAP and every new person that they hire. There is a benefit to them to ensure that they keep people on SNAP. How we fix SNAP is to help raise the minimum wage so that we can ensure people get off of SNAP. So people who actually need it are the ones who need it, not people working a full-time job. We need to make sure that that money is going to local farmers in the country, to make sure that people who are hungry have the funds and the food that they need to make sure that they can feed their children and their families. Companies like Walmart, who get the benefit of the SNAP over the people, cannot continue. That is the massive way we fix SNAP benefits, by making sure that it comes back to the people and not the corporations.
Sir, can you repeat the question, please?
She's asked to repeat the question. How would you describe the SNAP program and whether it needs reform?
So the SNAP program is interesting. The government, as far as I know, is supposed to help people. And the SNAP program is one of those programs. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. The problem with the benefit is the intake. So when you need a benefit, you apply, somebody calls you on the phone, you talk for 7 minutes, and you get a card in the mail the following month that says you're on the benefit. That's it. There's no questions that are asked about who else is in the household, who else can pay, do you plan to get gainful employment and pay it back? That's if for those who don't work. Now, people who do work are what we call the working poor, who also could be beneficial on SNAP. So does it need to be reformed? All federal rules and regulations need to be reformed because they're very, very red tape-ish. So all of it needs to be reformed, but we need to do it with a knife, not an axe. We need to figure out how the best dollar is spent. And there are people on there, veterans and people who are on Social Security who are on SNAP benefits. So everybody can benefit from SNAP benefits if we do it right and if we have things in place that stop fraud, because there probably is some excessive fraud in a SNAP benefit. But I think all the programs need to be looked at, but with a scalpel, not an axe. So, yeah, thank you.
Let's see, Bo, I think you're first now. Okay, all right. The next one is number 4. To what extent does the federal government have a role in providing or subsidizing health care?
I get to start with this one. This is going to be fun. Healthcare is an American right. It's a human right. If people cannot afford healthcare, then yes, the government is required to make sure that people can have health insurance. We have to make sure that every single person can go see a doctor without worrying about the bill. Sorry guys, I still get nervous talking in front of people, so you have to excuse me just a little bit. And this room's full, which is great to see. So it's required. The government's job is to make sure that the people have what they can afford through social programs and make sure that the taxpayers' money, our money, goes to where it's more beneficial. Healthcare should be subsidized so that everybody can make sure that they afford healthcare. The ACA is not perfect, but it is a step in the right direction to make sure that we have the programs that are needed. If we add a program like Medicare onto it to allow people to buy into, it gives people the public option to lower the prices on other healthcare insurance so that we have the right. And if we subsidize those costs, that's how we continue to make sure people have healthcare.
Okay. So with regard to the Affordable Care Act, so what happened when it first came out, because it was Obama that came out with it, the Republican states decided to opt out. And that's where that program went wrong, because the country should not have been allowed to step out of that program. And as a result, because they stepped out of the program and only a handful of states stepped in, the premiums were astronomical. imagine a country where all the states were inside the Affordable Care Act. It would have been much cheaper, but that's not what happened because they were given a choice. And I believe that the Affordable Care Act is not a perfect system, but it is something that is available to us today because the hospitals have glommed up all the hospitals. So now we're dealing with a monopoly as far as hospitals, physicians, and other areas. Atrium Health is taking over the entire city of Charlotte. Up by me, there are hospitals that are taking over and buying and buying and buying, and that's not good for anybody. A monopoly is not good for anybody. So what needs to happen is the Affordable Care Act needs to maintain and stay, but these states need to be mandated to get into the program so that it lowers the cost of the premium, and that helps everybody. And that's really what needs to happen. As long as Congress is continuing to be on the side of not right, then this is what we're dealing with. And as a result, people will die, people will be harmed, and people will not get the medical care they need because in hospitals, whether you have medical care or not, a hospital has to take you. And now the hospital emergency rooms are going to be flooded with people trying to get medical when emergency people are being left outside. And it's not right.
Polling data on the issue of healthcare is pretty clear. The overwhelming majority of Americans feel that the federal government should support it. So let's just be honest with ourselves. Why is it that President Trump would love to kill the ACA? It's because he wants to tarnish Obama's legacy. If we're going to have the conversation, let's be honest. It's rare when Democrats, like all of us in here, and Obama and Marjorie Taylor Greene are on the same page about something. And when it became abundantly clear that her kids' health insurance was going to go through the roof, it was easy for her to join. And even still, you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene and several other Republicans who get it because this week the ACA subsidies were in fact approved to be expanded. But guess who was not on that list of GOP members to approve it? Addison McDowell. But what would you expect from a former healthcare lobbyist? What would you expect from someone who spent their entire career only working for private corporations? What would you expect from someone who, quite frankly, is only loyal to one person, and that one person doesn't live in the 6th District? That one person lives at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and sometimes Mar-a-Lago. And so the problem is this. The 6th District needs a representative who understands the importance of health care, that it's not just a Democratic issue, but it is indeed an American issue.
We are to number 5. How would you work to restore federal agencies that were damaged by Doge? And Alyssa gets to go first.
On purpose. On purpose. That's a good question. Hey, save something for us. Okay?
Can you please repeat the question?
What would you do to get your job?
So my name is Alyssa Cassay, and I'm a federal employee who was doged. Interesting. I was the boots on the ground, and to get my job back would mean it would mean saying no. It would mean doing the right thing. It would mean having a policy and a procedure in place to allow the government to function as the government should function and not as a allegiance to one person. And in order to have that happen, we have to have people who are willing to stand up and say no. Now, that's what happened to me. I stood up and said no, but I could have stayed and continued the fight from within. But I felt that my fight would have been confined to just federal employees. Rather, I stepped down and wanted to fight for all people because that's what needs to happen. When we found out that Doge was coming in to take data, personal data, and decide from a spreadsheet that they were going to fire people and they were going to do everything from 1600 Pennsylvania or somewhere around that area, it was alarming to me personally to see that those little kids can make a decision like this to people's lives. And that's what needs to happen. First of all, Trump needs to go. That's number one. Congress needs to flip, and the people that go to Congress need to tell Trump and everybody that we've had enough of this. And if you want to talk policy, we'll talk policy. Otherwise, we're done.
Roughly a few months ago, people all over the world read the headline that for the first time in history, this world would see its first trillionaire, and that first trillionaire would be Elon Musk. And roughly 12 months ago, this government decided that it would give this soon-to-be trillionaire access to unlimited amounts of data on every single American citizen. A trillionaire who has proven to be erratic, a trillionaire who has proven to take ketamine on a daily basis, a trillionaire who was trying to populate his own town in Texas, a trillionaire who has satellites that arm the Russian army, a trillionaire who went on Twitter and already told you that Trump's in the Epstein files, and that's the only reason they ain't been released. If any of us thought that the Doge experiment was successful, let me know today. Because I'm pretty sure that all of us know for a fact that it was really just a cover to throw out the narrative out there about wasteful spending. Yet and still, we've just increased the deficit through the big, beautiful bill. And so the truth is, if we're going to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse and preserving spending, you don't increase your deficit through the big, beautiful bill. What we do is we make sure that all those folks in Trump's cabinet will be the people who we call to the table for impeachment hearings. You're going to bring forward Kristi Noem. You're going to bring forth Pete Hegseth. And dear God, we got to get RFK up out of here. Because I never thought in my life that we'd ever have to worry about measles again, y'all. But here we are worrying about an outbreak. And so we're going to protect and assure that we have serious folks. As Tillis said earlier this week, amateur hour is over.
So, yes, we have to impeach. That is very true. Every single one of them needs to go. But what we need to worry about is the programs that were cut were the ones that were looking into SpaceX and Elon Musk. USAID, that was just helping people get food in third world countries. The Institution for Peace, which I'm not going to call it by its full name because we know he's not really the Institution for Peace president. But these programs were meant to be a global force for good. And the funding for these went to go to the big, beautiful bill. And that is where the millionaires and billionaires got larger tax breaks than most of the people in this room make in a year, which is sad. Those people do not deserve those tax breaks. That money needs to go back to helping USAID, funding the government to make sure that people like Alyssa still have jobs. We can still continue to hire and build programs meant to help the American people. That is where this funding needs to go, not millionaires, billionaires, corporations. That is wrong. The big, beautiful bill is a stain on the American people, and it needs to be dismantled piece by piece. Thank you.
The sixth question, Cyril will answer first. Are there any policies or regulations you would support to promote housing affordability?
It's pretty clear that you can't live the American dream if you don't have a place to live it. And Mayor Sheffield will tell you that being the mayor of a city means that that is of the utmost importance for all of us. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing in High Point. Just this past year, we approved our 2045 comprehensive plan. That was a very bold plan to ensure that every High Pointer has a place to stay. And just this week, we approved our 5x5 strategy, which ensures that over the next 5 years, we're going to build and preserve 5,000 housing units. And not just that, we took $2 million of taxpayer dollars to leverage and get $38 million in private investment to ensure that housing across the city of High Point is affordable and is attainable for all of our residents. It's pretty clear here that government has to play a role in ensuring that people have a place to live. It's a basic human right. And if there's one thing I actually did appreciate that President Trump said this week, is that we got to go after investment companies who are buying up homes all across this country. When I talk to constituents and they say to me, my grandson tried to buy a home on the north side of High Point, but he was outbid by investment company X, there's no way you can compete because they come in with cash offers and they close in no time. And what they end up doing is they really don't care because they don't live in those neighborhoods. So it ends up being transient populations. Sometimes it's short-term rentals. And what happens is those neighborhoods are no longer as strong because banks know this. Once you hit a certain threshold of having rented properties in your neighborhood, they no longer give loans for people to buy homes in that neighborhood. So now the issue just exacerbates itself and gets worse and worse. A housing strategy must ensure that it's affordable for all people and that it doesn't work for big corporations, but that it works for everyday Americans.
Yes. So we know that big businesses are buying up homes left and right. We know that they're holding on to inventory left and right to ensure that home prices continue to skyrocket, pricing young people out of the market. What we need to do is make sure that these corporations have no incentive to continue to go after these vacant homes. If we tax them after holding a house for a year, not only do we raise funds to help people who have homes that are unsafe to fix up their homes, but we also build the inventory that is shortfall on the American people. It's estimated that right now we're about 5 million units short of having enough homes for all of the American people currently looking to buy a home. And what that does is it prices young people who are already in debt from college and everything else like that out of buying a home for their families and for future. That's what we have to go after. If we continue to go after these corporations and make sure that they have no incentive to buy homes to hold on to, then we can make sure that we open up all of the inventory available for every single person that's out there to make sure that we are the ones benefiting to have homes to build families moving forward.
So housing is a problem. I mean, my daughter just purchased a house and, she didn't think she would ever buy one. So it is a problem. And I believe that the government needs to assist in that process. But I also believe that we have to be strategic about it. We could offer low cost loans for first time home buyers, or we can offer other incentives so that the young couple or the young person can purchase a home and live in that home and grow a family. But I also believe that what Bo said about large corporations need to have a tax code adjustment. The tax code needs to change so that large corporations don't get a huge benefit of buying up all these little houses. The other thing is there should be an additional incentive for a small business owner. A small contractor who's trying to do the right thing is getting scrambled in red tape because they have to adhere to the same rules and regulations as a large corporation who has millions of dollars of attorneys on the books. And these small corporations is the backbone of our country, and they need to be protected. And they can be protected if we get rid of the tax code that enables these large corporations to soak up the houses and gives more incentives for the small business to possibly grow their business by making houses that are affordable in neighborhoods that need it. The other thing is, I think that we should take have a stepping stone. So we could put people or who that want to in a smaller duplex as an example. From there, you can grow that duplex out into maybe a smaller home in the same neighborhood so kids don't have to switch schools, and then eventually go into a larger home. And you stay in the neighborhood, you protect the neighborhood is yours, and you protect what you own. And that's the difference. And that's what needs to happen. Government needs to help those that need to be helped, not the 1%.
Bo, you'll go first on number 7. Number 7, the newly elected mayor of New York has pledged to create a program for universal child care. Do you support this approach? And if so, how would you implement it?
Yes. Just kidding. Yes, and that's a great program, and I was just reading about that. They leverage taxpayer funds to raise more funds to make sure that we could have universal health care for everybody in New York so that they can continue to work. That's what we need to do, is we need to make sure that we are using our funds correctly. The big theme of what we have focused on is this big awful bill, where we are cutting funding left and right to programs meant to help the American people so that millionaires and billionaires can continue to get their tax cuts. When we have plenty of money out there to fund Title I education, we have plenty of money out there to fund daycare for every single person so that they can continue to work. But instead, this president and this administration want to use those funds to make sure that their rich friends continue to stay rich. We have plenty of money to fund a universal healthcare system so that every American has the ability to get a job without worrying about childcare, so that every American can have childcare without worrying about taking time off of work, missing a paycheck, because that is what is most important. We continue to see Americans not being able to work because they have no one to help them with their children. We have to move forward and use the funding that's already available to us to fund these programs, because that's what government is meant to do, is to help us, not millionaires and billionaires.
So, how many of you have been to New York? I mean, so just, I don't know if you've realized this, but I don't come from around here, right? So Mondani has a unique situation in New York. He has what we call Wall Street, and he has all that. And that is what he can leverage to do virtually all the things that he wants to do. The free grocery store, the free bus passes, the free childcare, the free basket that you get when you have a child. You get this huge basket to go home with. All that stuff he can do because he has Wall Street right there. And if they don't like it, they could leave. And guess what? They're not going to leave. So they're going to suck it up. And he's going to be successful because of that. And we all should look to New York to see if we can implement those same things in other areas. But because nobody else has Wall Street, we have to be a little more strategic about how we make those implementations. Unfortunately, those implementations will be a little harder in an area like this or a state like this. I'm not saying we can't do it. I'm saying we need to put the proper people in place, like me, who can go there and make a bill and say we need to mimic what New York is doing, but just on a level that our communities can actually achieve. I don't want to go to Washington to just do stuff like, Addison McDowell we know does nothing. We don't want to go to Washington just to say we're doing stuff, and at the end of the day we still have nothing like McDowell to show for it. That's not what I'm about. I want to go to Washington and actually do stuff. And if it means even they agree. And even if it's one good bill, that's all I need to be successful. Thank you.
I recently joined a cohort of leaders from across the state with the Hunt Institute, where we're focused on how do we ensure that we've got the kind of economy that makes North Carolina continue to be the great North State, continue to be the number one for business. But the truth is that the front lines of economic development is, in fact, in education. As vice chair of an organization called Ready for School, Ready for Life, our whole entire focus is on ensuring that our system of childcare across the county has all the data it needs, all the funding it needs, and all the resources provided, so that way our young people have what helps them. What we know is that 90+% of brain development happens in the first several years of a child's life. If we're going to get serious about ensuring that Americans are equipped for what comes later on, we've got to start as soon as they're born. Because the truth is this: if we're not taking care of our babies, here's what we do know. Third grade reading scores and third grade test scores are what they use to build prisons. Until we reverse the trend on how young people are being educated, we're going to have more folks going into prisons than we're going to have folks filling the jobs that makes this country truly great again.
This is the 8th and the last question, and Alyssa will go first. What should be the component parts of a comprehensive immigration bill?
Can you let me get there first before I can answer the question? Um, that's the $1,000,000 question. I suppose if I can answer that strategically and with success, I'll be the only one standing on Capitol Hill, I believe. The problem is, how I see it, is I'm not saying that, I'm definitely not saying what Trump has done to the border is okay. But I'm also saying that I'm not sure that previous presidents also did to the border as that's okay. What I think is we're all immigrants. Well, apparently, except for Trump. I guess he's not an immigrant, but all of us came from somewhere else. I know my family did. And if you come through illegal means, then I believe that you should be able to find a pathway to citizenship at the border. So for me, Biden did have a plan to hire more judges to speed up that system, but when Trump got in, he stopped that. And that was a good idea, actually. So as people come into the border, while they're doing it illegally, we understand. But there's a lot of bad countries out there, and people just want to live in a free society. And we are privileged to be, well, I'm not, in the before time, we were privileged to live in a democracy that we can feel safe in. And a lot of people should mimic that. And a lot of people want to come to this country. And I think that they should come, whether it's through illegal means or legal. Relax the legalized rules, and then they'll come legally. Like, just find a pathway for them. They'll come legally if you give them a pathway. Otherwise, they're going to come the way they're going to come. And it should be streamlined for them to go into a judgeship immediately and their story be told. And that's what needs to happen.
I can tell you, I don't talk to an American who says that they don't want to have a secure border. But what Americans really want is legal pathways for immigrants who do want to come here. So that way we've got the immigration judges in place, and that we can ensure that America, this country that's been the great melting pot of the world, that we can continue to benefit from that, because our diversity truly is our strength. But instead of passing bipartisan bills like what was proposed 2 years ago that would do that, instead we're shifting funding into immigrations and custom enforcement, otherwise known as ICE. And we're going and we're sending out commercials where Kristi Noem is on horses, and she's saying to people, hey, are you tired of having to stand down? Why don't you come join our group? You don't even have to go to training that long. You can just come in for a couple week orientation, and we'll give you a gun. We'll give you a mask, and we'll give you some Subaru so no one knows who you are. And you'll drive into neighborhoods, and when people come across you, they won't know who you are. They'll just worry about being disappeared off the street. And if they disagree with you, no worries. We'll call them a domestic terrorist. Right now in this country, we have to agree on some basic things. We have to be able to agree that law enforcement should work for every single person. And just yesterday was Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and as the mayor of a city where we've driven down violent crime by 75%, you better believe I appreciate our law enforcement. But we would never, ever allow our folks to show up with masks on and unmarked vehicles disappearing people off the street. And in High Point, we do not allow our police department to coordinate or to work with ICE. That's just not going to happen. In fact, what we've been doing in High Point is we've been coordinating trainings on Fourth Amendment trainings. We've been coordinating ICE Watch trainings. We've been coordinating power of attorney clinics to ensure that people know what to do to their child in case they come and get picked up. We've been trying to make sure that people are prepared for the storm that's coming. But when you send me to Congress, here's what I'm going to tell you we're going to do. We're going to make sure ICE doesn't have a budget bigger than the Israeli military, y'all. We're going to make sure that we get things leveled and back straight.
All right.
All right. Put it simply, stopping illegal immigration is illegal. And the reason why I say that is because if it wasn't for that, none of us would be here. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be married to my wife right there, who is a naturalized citizen. Thank you. Yes, definitely clap for her. She's. But if it wasn't for that, then we wouldn't have a country that we lived in. Back in 2023, Senate Bill 4361 was proposed. And it was a great bipartisan bill that actually did everything that we wanted to make sure that we could fix in this country. It expanded court access to make sure that asylum seekers were here, that they could get their court hearings quicker. It made sure that we expanded to make sure that people had an easier pathway, not a good pathway, to American citizenship. It also expanded funding for ICE to make sure that ICE could do their job at the border and make sure that we were not letting in drugs and criminals into this country. Not what ICE is doing now. We have all seen on TV and all the pictures of what is happening, and we know about what happened in Minnesota. ICE's funding needs to go to make sure that we have guaranteed citizenship paths to to illegal immigrants. That's what we need to make sure that we are focusing on, not running down people in the streets who look like they are Hispanic, not shooting guns into car windows and murdering innocent American citizens. That is not what we need. We need to make sure that we have real attainable paths to citizenship. That's the most comprehensive thing that we can put into an immigration bill.
That completes the 8 questions. We will now ask each of the candidates to give a 1-minute wrap up, and we will start with Bo.
It's because my name is Bo Blair. That's what happens. Look, as I alluded to earlier, I still get nervous talking in front of people. I'm not a career politician, and I don't claim to be. And I'm proud to say that. I'm proud to say that I stepped up as an American citizen to run for office. And I am proud to say that I feel like we have done a very good job in what we are doing. Because we speak for the American people. We are the American people. We are raising a family with 2 children whose education I fear is being taken away. My wife is a naturalized citizen, and I fear what could happen to her with ICE, with the unchecked power that they have. That is the fear that I have. We all have the same fears. That's why I'm running for office. That's why I'm running for office. It's because our fear needs to be taken care of. Because we need to be taken care of. We can no longer sit by and watch what's happening in our country with the most corrupt administration continue to happen. We can no longer allow Addison McDowell to get away with what he's getting away with. I'm Bo Blair. I'm from right here in Salisbury. Thank you very much.
So I am not a politician either. I'm a lifelong public servant. And what I bring to the table is I enforced the rules and regulations that were written by Congress, the very people that we're trying to get out and the very people that I'm trying to replace. So I believe that I can be an easy fit for Washington because that is what I was brought up on. And I believe that I could bring to the table negotiation skills that they taught me, right? The federal government taught me everything that I know, and I can bring that with me when I go. And my big New York mouth to tell people when things aren't fair, they're not fair. When things are fair, then let's bring it to the table. We need to get stuff done there. I'm not full of sound bites, and I don't like wasting time. We need to get our democracy back. That's why my platform is ROAR, Reclaim Our American Rights. Casse all the way, vote for me. Thank you.
In June of last year, our team traveled to Washington, D.C. to sit down with Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. And Nancy Pelosi knows us personally because her grandson interned for me when he was a college student. And I sat down with her and I told her I was running for this district. And she said, Mayor, this is a bad district. Why are you running? I said, Speaker Pelosi, I got to tell you, I'm not ignorant to how tough this is, but I've got a history of running in races where the odds have been long. I've been the underdog before, and in both occasions, we've won overwhelmingly. We learned how to win bipartisan support, and we learned how to ensure that what we didn't have in expertise and experience, we made up for in energy. No one's going to knock more doors. No one's going to shake more hands, and no one's going to kiss more babies than what we're going to do on this campaign. We will make sure that we win it and come November in this general election. The polling data tells us that we can beat Addison McDowell. In the last poll, we were beating him by 6 points. And so if you want a serious candidate come to general election, vote Cyril Jefferson on November 3rd. And I ask you to remember the names just like George and Wheezy. Think about moving on up. Vote Jefferson March 3rd.
Well, I want to thank each of the candidates for coming, and I certainly hope you thought it was as profitable as I did. They'll be around to answer questions if you would like afterwards, but thank you for coming, and I'm turning it over to Jeffrey.
And we need to say thank you, Gary Freeze, for being our moderator.